Hello, everyone, and welcome in to another episode here of the RTI Show. I'm Nathaniel Rutherford, the managing editor of RockyTopInsider.com, and I'm joined again by a former contributor and a very knowledgeable young lady about Tennessee football, Abby Goodman. You all have seen her before on the last RTI show. She did RTI premium stuff with us. She did several different stuff with us, last year and I think the previous year too, maybe, but at least last year and stuff. So, Abby, thank you again for joining me on the show today.
Thanks for having me again. It's great to be back with you.
Yeah, so we talked a lot last time about Tennessee's quarterback situation. We're going to do the same here because last time we talked, I think it was after the Florida game, the last RTI show we did. So at that point, there hadn't been a quarterback change. When it was announced that Brian Maurer was going to be the starting quarterback, Abby, you were one of the first people I thought of because I thought, hey, I bet you she's happy that Tennessee's moving on from Jarrett Guarantano. But in all honesty, though, I thought it was the right move. I made the argument after the Florida game that I think it's time to move on and time to give the reins over to Maurer. Even though you're facing number 3 Georgia after the bye week, that's obviously not ideal. But I think it was the right move, and so far it's looking like it's been the right move. Tennessee, they got the win, without Maurer essentially after the Mississippi State game. And I do want to talk about that a little bit, but before we get into some of that discussion, Abby, I've obviously shared, a lot of my thoughts on Maurer on the website, on RockyTopInsider.com, on different podcasts with Ben McKee, our staff writer at RTI. I'm curious in your thoughts on Maurer's play, in the Georgia game and in Mississippi State, both of his starts that he's had so far this season.
I was pretty impressed with the way he played. I saw a leader on the field. I saw a good field general, but I still did see, that young freshman making some goofy mistakes, obviously, as some Tennessee players made comments about. So I saw the goofy mistakes that were made, but all in all, I was pretty impressed with his play. He did a very good job of being a good field general and being a leader and stepping up, playing fast, making decisions, maybe not always the best decisions, but making decisions and trying to make things happen.
Yeah, I think in the Georgia game, one of the things Ben McKee and I discussed in the RTI podcast, I think that following Monday was, was that a flash in the pan? Was this a game where he had a really good first half, and then obviously in the third quarter he got just absolutely just blown apart by Georgia's defense, and Tennessee in general just got kind of blown apart by Georgia in the second half of that game. So I was curious to see what he would do against Mississippi State, and as you said, he played very hard. He does not want for effort. I'll definitely say that about him. He plays with passion. You could see that, and it brings an energy. As Juwan Jennings said this week, he does bring an energy and a passion. It brings a little bit of juice to the sideline, and I think that above maybe even his play, because he's a true freshman, he's going to make mistakes. Both of the interceptions he threw against State they weren't good. All the interceptions in that game were all just really bad throws by the quarterback. Going back and watching the film and seeing a really good film breakdown by Matt Wyatt, who is a former Mississippi State quarterback who does a lot of stuff now for Mississippi State football. He does a really good film session, a film analysis every week, and he went back and looked at the Tennessee-Mississippi State game. He broke down the interceptions by Tommy Stevens by Mississippi State, and it was just bad throws. Maurer's second interception, especially after he suffered concussion, so you're a little more lenient on him there, but it was a bad throw. But to me, Abby, I think the biggest thing, and this isn't to knock JG, because I think Guarantano is a leader in a different way, and we've seen that because he's been a good teammate and a good leader with Brian Maurer. He's done a good job, I think, of being a good teammate and still being engaged on the sideline. And if Maurer messes up or does something, he's on the sideline encouraging him and talking with it. And I thought he did an exceptionally good job of coming in and managing the offense against State. That he played more like the Guarantano of 2018 than this year. But I think it can't be understated to me, and you and I have talked about this before, the quarterback position goes beyond the stat sheet. It goes beyond, kind of what you see on the field from when you're playing. I think the way what his leadership does for the team, and the way, as Jennings said, he brings some juice to the sideline. I think that maybe more than even his play, maybe not more than, but that as well as his play, I think to me was, it just further proves that it was the right move to bench JG and give Maurer the chance. It doesn't mean Maurer is going to be the quarterback of the future for Tennessee, but I think for this season right now, it's undoubtedly the right move.
Yeah, no, I don't think Brian Maurer is the quarterback of the future or anything like that, but I definitely think that this is the best decision for Tennessee football at this point in time, mainly because of while I think JG does a good job of being a good leader and being a good teammate, he doesn't have that field general kind of mentality. You don't see him on the field, saying, you do this, you do this, you do this. Whereas one thing that I see about Brian Maurer, and I spoke about this last time you had me on, is that I like the fact that he gets on the field and he tells people where they should be, what they should be doing, how they can be better. I like that. Even if he is a freshman, I don't care how old you are. If you can make that happen and get some things done, like I've seen him doing, maybe not to the best, maybe it's not equating to wins necessarily, but I don't think that any of us just, anticipated Tennessee beating Georgia. Maybe it's not necessarily equating to wins or whatever you want to call it, but I think he's doing a very good job of stepping up quarterback play, stepping up as a leader, and being a very, very good field general, as well as being a good teammate. I think from there, you just have to build on the fact that he's young. He's going to make dumb mistakes, and that's nothing against him. It's just when you're a young quarterback, that's what you do, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's the case where, you expect him to make mistakes, and you've just got to, like you said, he's got to learn from it. He's not going to learn how to build off those mistakes and how to correct them from practice. He's got to do it in games. So at this point, because you need him, you need something different at quarterback. And in that same vein, to look at, what happened this past Saturday with Maurer, throwing 2 interceptions, didn't play exceptionally well in the first half, and he suffered that concussion in the second quarter. It seems like it was a mild concussion because he was still, moving around and stuff on the sidelines. He went back and celebrated with the team after the win. He didn't seem like he was, locked in a dark room. He doesn't seem like it's as severe of a concussion, for example, as Riley Locklear for Tennessee's offensive lineman, who's been held out for the past couple games. And he suffered, as I think Pruitt said, he got his bell wrong. That's Pruitt's term for concussion, essentially. He did outright say concussion with Maurer, but typically when a guy suffers a concussion, Pruitt says he gets his bell wrong. But Locklear's been held out. I don't know that Maurer's going to be held out against Alabama. So this is kind of a two-part question. To me, Guarantano's play on Saturday, that was the kind of Guarantano you expected to see at the start of the season. He was a guy who wasn't making mistakes. He was finished 6 of 7. He made good throws. I think one of the better throws he's made all season came in that game when he made the check down throw to Tim Jordan. It wasn't a flashy play. It wasn't it wasn't the 39-yard touchdown. It wasn't a touchdown play, but it was a play where that was not his initial read. He was facing pressure, and he got the ball out right at the last minute to Jordan, and then Jordan picked up a first down. I thought that was a really good throw by Guarantano, and he did a good job. He wasn't asked to do a whole lot, but neither was Maurer. Both guys threw the ball 7 times in the game. Tennessee ran the ball 44 times total. So they decided early on they wanted to have more of a conservative play calling, and it worked out because the defense was just flying around, and Mississippi State's offense couldn't do anything, for one, because of their own fault, but also two, Tennessee's defense played a really good game. After what you saw from Guarantano on Saturday, knowing that Maurer has a concussion, even though he's been practicing this week, Pruitt said it's a game time decision, knowing that you're playing Alabama this weekend, that it's not, it's not South Carolina, it's not Kentucky, it's not Vanderbilt. It's a game where Tennessee's a 35-point underdog at this point. They're playing a night game in Alabama. What is your opinion on the quarterback situation for the Bama game? Do you sit Maurer out and make sure he's healthy for the stretch run when you have a lot more winnable games left on the schedule? Do you go ahead and play him because you think maybe it sends a bad message to the team that you're held them out? Or do you play Guarantano and hope that maybe he can play like he did against Mississippi State and give you a chance to at least do some good things in this game? So essentially I'm just curious what your thoughts of Guarantano's play against Mississippi State, and then what do you think Tennessee needs to do in this Bama game?
Yes and no in terms of the Bama game. I think Guarantano played a very good game against Mississippi State. I was very impressed with him, and that's a lot coming from me. The thing with that is I think you play Maurer, but I don't think you keep him in the entire game, only because of the fact that we're discussing him making dumb decisions. So I think he's going to get, a little bit of a shell shock in terms of when the lights come on and they're playing Alabama, and he's gonna be like, oh gosh, we're playing Alabama, I have to do this, I have to do this. I think what you do is you play him just so that he can get his jitters out of the way and get some touches and get some reps, but I don't think you play him the full game, just to keep him healthy for that long stretch that they're about to go through. There's no way that Tennessee is standing a chance against Alabama, and so I think it's just a good opportunity to get him some reps. Don't get him beat up. If worse comes to worse, start him, take him out, put Guarantano in, and call it a day.
I think that's not a bad idea. I just wonder, does Pruitt try to hide behind the concussion protocol a little bit with Maurer, like you said? And I think you see both quarterbacks this weekend, though. I don't think you'll see Pruitt, hide behind the concussion protocol a whole lot, because to me that sends the wrong message to the team of, we're if you're one to making the message to your team, we can win every single game, even though if it's a game like this where you're huge underdogs, you don't bench your guy who's been your starter the last couple of games just because you're trying to, withhold him and keep him safe for the next few games. Like you said, though, I think it would not surprise me at all if you see both guys playing on Saturday, unless something happens with the Maurer here the next couple of days. We're recording this show on Thursday. Unless something happens with him between now and kickoff where he has, a major setback or something like that, I think he's going to start.
Oh, yeah.
And the only way I don't think you see both quarterbacks is if somehow Maurer goes out and he's just lighting it up and Tennessee has a chance to, is somehow in this game heading into the fourth quarter. I think unless that happens, Maurer is going to be pulled maybe even in the second quarter for a few series for Guarantano. He maybe comes back in the second half. Either way, I think even if it's just kind of one half for one quarterback, one half for the other one, it would surprise me quite a bit, actually, if you don't see both quarterbacks in this game. And as you said, I think that could be the right call.
It would shock me. The only way that it wouldn't shock me, like you said, is if Brian Maurer takes a turn for the worse. I don't think that's going to happen with his concussion, and they just want to hold him out for the sake of the fact that he has a concussion, not to keep him healthy going forward. So that's really the only reason that I don't foresee both of them playing. I definitely see both of them playing and getting reps. And honestly, I kind of see that happening all the way through the rest of the season.
Interesting. Why is that?
I think they do make a very good team, and I think that when Brian Maurer starts off, he gets hot, he gets going, and I think Guarantano feeds off of his energy a lot. I think it sounds kind of funny, but we've talked about before, Guarantano gets down on himself when he makes one silly mistake. I think I've seen a lot of him growing up and kind of not getting down on himself so much in that Mississippi State game. If anything went wrong or anything like that, that he's done a very good job of getting hot and finding ways to get things done. And I'm kind of impressed with him. I think he's getting back to 2018 Guarantano. Not going to get there fully, but I think he's getting back there.
That's interesting. And I also wonder because of Maurer's health, and not that he's some kind of frail kid, but he's not as physically tough yet as Guarantano is. He's been hit hard in both games he's played in. He got knocked out of both games he's played in. He didn't finish his game against Georgia in his first start. Guarantano came in and finished out the fourth quarter. He didn't finish against Mississippi State because he suffered concussion. That has nothing to do with toughness. You could be the toughest guy in the world and still get a concussion. That doesn't matter. Being tough doesn't exclude you from getting concussions. But I'm just saying he's left both games early. It does make you wonder a little bit about, hey, you're not going to face as physical of a defense as you did against Georgia again this season. Even Alabama, they're going to be physical. They're just not quite as good to the same level, the same amount of depth that Georgia has. So they're still a physical defense. There's been a lot of talk about this isn't a typical Alabama defense. It's still a top 5 defense in the SEC, though. It's not like it's a bottom feeder in the conference. But other than them, and then Missouri's got a pretty good defense too, especially a really good pass defense. You're going to face defenses like South Carolina, Kentucky, and especially Vanderbilt that are just – Vanderbilt's horrible. Their defense is easily the worst in the SEC. Kentucky's hasn't been – they've taken a big step back this year because they lost a lot of talent from last year. And South Carolina's defense, for Will Muschamp being a defensive coach, they haven't been that good this season. I know obviously they also lost quite a bit. They've also faced a really tough schedule, and they still have a really tough schedule ahead of them. They're playing Florida this weekend. But moving ahead, Abby, you mentioned, I think it's interesting that you think that, we'll see both Maurer and Guarantano for the rest of the year. After this Alabama game, Tennessee's schedule opens up very favorably. I think they lose to Bama. I think they probably still lose to Missouri, even though, Missouri did lose Cale Garrett, their top linebacker. Their quarterback still, Kelly Bryant thought maybe he might be out for a little bit. He looks like he's fine. If he's healthy, that offense will be good enough, and that defense, I think, will be good enough to beat Tennessee. But every other game, in my opinion, even the Missouri game, is still very winnable, and a lot of those games are toss-ups / games where Tennessee should be favored in. What's with Brian Maurer as the quarterback now, with Tennessee seeming to have a little bit more of a spark on offense, with the offensive line playing better, with some of the growth you saw in the Mississippi State game specifically, and from the Georgia game too, because while it wasn't reflected in the scoreboard, I think there was definitely growth from that game. What is your outlook for the rest of the season? Because I look at it as I don't think bowl eligibility is off the table at this point. I think Tennessee has it. I think Tennessee has the potential of getting 6 wins and getting to a bowl game. I'm not betting on it happening, but it can happen. But I think 5-7 is definitely a doable record at this point. But with South Carolina getting that upset victory over Georgia, with Missouri still playing as good as they are, I would hesitate to say 6-6. I might even hesitate to say 5-7. But if you go 4-8 after the way the beginning of the season went, and you get some SEC wins, that's not horrible. It's not ideal. But 5-7, getting back to what you did last season, the same record you had last year, after the way the season began, it wouldn't be a success, but it wouldn't be a failure at this point if Tennessee got to that. So I'm curious in your outlook for the rest of the season, considering Maurer's play that he's starting and the fact that it does look like Tennessee has shown, in my opinion, quite a bit of improvement from the first couple weeks of the season.
They've definitely shown in a bit of improvement, but in my opinion, it's not very positive right now. I see them on the upward spiral from the beginning of this season, but I would say it's a stretch to go 6-6, and I would say it's a little bit of a stretch to go 5-7, just because looking at this team, there's a lot of question marks. In my opinion, I think that making the quarterback change was a huge decision and is a huge factor going forward. But I still don't necessarily want to say that I'm very confident that this team can go 5-7 or 6-6.
I mean, that's fair. I'm not gonna fault you for that at all. I'm gonna pull up here.
I was like, please don't ask me to make a rest of the season prediction.
No. I'm not doing that yet. That'll be. I'm gonna wait for that for me or for you or for Ben. I'll wait and do that until we get after the Bama game, just to see how Tennessee does in that game and see if there's any significant injuries or anything like that, because Bama tends to just beat the crap out of people. And it kind of, I can't remember the stat is, but there's been a stat going around for years now of what teams' records are after they face Alabama. And in the game afterwards, and it's just brutal. And Tennessee again this season for I think the 4th time in a row, at least the 3rd time in a row, they're facing South Carolina after playing Alabama. So it's just like, and South Carolina's been able to take advantage every single time the last few years of Tennessee doing that. Actually, they didn't in 2017. So I think they did in 2016, and they did last year, and they're doing it again this year. So South Carolina's been able to take advantage of Tennessee playing a really good opponent right before them. So according to, you're talking about, you don't feel confident of saying Tennessee could get to 6-6 or 5-7. According to teamrankings.com, which I've used a lot for different college basketball stuff, and they do a lot of projections and a lot of kind of statistical analysis and looking ahead to schedules and stuff. According to them, their projected record for Tennessee for the remaining of the season, the best odds for Tennessee's season right now is a 38.8% chance of Tennessee going 4-8. So that's statistically the most probable outcome for Tennessee is to go 4-8. The second most probable outcome is 5-7 at 31.1%. So you have 4-8 and 5-7 are kind of lumped together as this, almost a combined 70% chance of Tennessee finishing with one of two of those records. The next one is 3-9 with 15.7%. And they only give them a 10.7% chance of going 6-6 overall. With either a 6-6 or 7-5 record, this prediction only gives Tennessee a 12% chance of getting bowl eligible this season, which was up actually. I remember looking back before the Georgia game, and Tennessee only had a 5% chance of getting bowl eligibility before that Georgia game. So that win over Mississippi State, more than doubled Tennessee's chances of what it was of getting to a bowl game. Still not good though. Their record forecast, they kind of break it down into an interesting perspective here. They have it into different chunks of like the 10th percentile, which would be the lowest potential thing, and the 90th percentile, which would be the highest performing thing. That they call it, in their scenarios, they call it a miracle, which would be finishing in the 90th percentile of what they believe you're capable of doing. According to them, the record forecast, Tennessee's miracle kind of finish for the 2019 season would be getting to 6-6. So it would take a quote unquote miracle for Tennessee to get to bowl eligibility, according to team rankings. Abby, is that fair? Is that a fair assessment in your mind?
Yeah, I think it would be a miracle. I don't foresee it happening. And I hate that. I really do. And I hate to be negative, but I don't foresee it happening just because of the sake of the fact that Tennessee is not in a position to go to a bowl game right now. Mainly because I don't think they know what they're doing at this specific moment with, like I said, I think we're going to see both quarterbacks the rest of the year. I don't think they have an exact game plan going forward.
I mean, I think that's fair. I don't fault anyone for feeling pessimistic about the team. I also don't fault anyone for feeling a little more optimistic about the team after the Georgia Mississippi State games. But like you said,
call them dedicated.
One of my things that I mentioned this in the RTI podcast earlier this week was that, I don't think Tennessee performed up to their peak in Mississippi against the Bulldogs on Saturday, but at the same time, that was definitely the best game they've played all season. And I don't know how many more times you're going to see that from Tennessee moving forward. I don't know how many more games this season where Tennessee is going to be able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And the defensive line didn't necessarily play maybe as good as you would think with them having 7 sacks and 10 tackles for loss. There was several times where it was a corner blitz that got the sack, or it was because of the secondary having really good coverage that Tennessee got a sack, or just by a bad mistake by Mississippi State quarterback of making the wrong reads and taking too long to throw the ball. So I don't even know necessarily you could say Tennessee's defensive line controlled the line of scrimmage on defense, but the offensive line definitely did. I thought Tennessee's offensive line had the best game of the season, but how many more times do you expect that to happen? I mean, maybe, hopefully against UAB, probably against Vanderbilt. I don't know that you'll see it against, obviously not against Alabama. I don't know that you'll see it against South Carolina, for example. I don't know that you'll see it against Missouri. I just, my hesitancy is can Tennessee's line of scrimmages continue to keep improving and continue to play the way they are? Because, if Tennessee's offensive line keeps improving the way they are, I think the offense can have some success. That defensive line to me, even with them playing a little better against Mississippi State, I hesitate to say that they're going to show a lot more improvement because they just haven't looked that was the best they've looked all season. And then once you look at the film and kind of rewatch the game, it wasn't like they were blowing Mississippi State's offensive line off the ball. It was just kind of, like I said, sometimes they were, but they were still, again, very inconsistent. That's been the biggest issue with them. Is they've either been non-factors or they've been very inconsistent. And I don't blame anyone for, like you or me, either one, for thinking, I don't know if they can keep this up. I don't know if that's going to be something they can do moving forward.
Well, my question is as they head into Alabama, as they head into Alabama and then coming out of that into, what's essentially the gauntlet of their schedule, mm-hmm. How many guys are going to get injured? How great is the depth really? How can you actually truly make an evaluation on how many guys are hurt right at this current moment and we just don't know it, or they're playing through things? I think coming out of the Alabama game, there's going to be a lot of question marks around that, which is where I come up with the question of how can they keep it up? Because I don't think anyone really knows how many guys realistically could get banged around too much in the Alabama game.
Yeah, and I think it's fair. And by the way, to kind of finish out the predictive stuff here on teamrankings.com, their odds for, they're kind of like, ESPN's FPI kind of thing where they give the odds for Tennessee's ability to beat different opponents and things like that. Their best odds for Tennessee to get wins this season are against Vanderbilt and UAB. They give Tennessee an 85.2% chance of beating Vanderbilt, which that's significant, and Tennessee an 82.1% chance of beating UAB. They give Tennessee only a 32.5% chance of beating Kentucky, which I think is interesting, and a 25.5% chance against South Carolina. They're a lot more pessimistic on Tennessee's chances of beating the Gamecocks than, for example, ESPN. Missouri, Tennessee only has an 8.5% chance of beating the Tigers. Abby, can you guess what percentage chance they give Tennessee of beating Alabama?
Well, okay, ESPN gave them 2%. Mm-hmm. Me personally, I think 1%. That's just me. I don't even think 2%. I think 2% is way too much, but Ben on Twitter thinks it's not. So I'm still 1%.
Yeah, I think the FBI gives them like a 2.5 or 2.6. TeamRankings.com gives them 0.5%. So not even 1% chance of beating Alabama. They give them a 0.5% chance of beating Alabama this weekend. So that's where Tennessee sits right now. That's just it's brutal. I remember I looked it up earlier this week. Tennessee's record in like games where they're underdogs. I think in the last 20 years, the games that they're underdogs of 30 or more points, they haven't won a single game, but they've only covered the spread, I think, like twice in like 10 or 11 games where they've been favored or they've been underdogs by 30 or more points. So also the fact that they've been underdogs by 30 or more points, in double digits amount of times in the last 10, 15 years, that's just not something I thought, because most of those are coming the past, 5 to 6 years. So anyway, I think that'll be a good point to kind of end the show here on, is because I wanted this to be mostly about the quarterback situation and kind of Tennessee moving forward a little bit. I mean, And I think, Ben McKee and I will probably do a podcast later on today or on Friday, kind of looking at the Bama game. And then we'll have more of a big picture stuff too. But I wanted to talk about the quarterback with you, Abby, because you and I, we both enjoy having quarterback discussions, and I think the viewers enjoy hearing your thoughts, especially on the quarterback position. So I know you don't do a whole lot of sports stuff necessarily as kind of a main job anymore, but if anybody wants to kind of interact with you and follow you online or anything like that, where can they find you?
Abby with 1B is all of my social media. Give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram, and yeah, let's get to chatting about it.
Obviously, you can follow us if you're watching this on YouTube. You probably already subscribed to us, but hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. But we're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Rocky Top Insider. That's just easy to remember. Just go like us on Facebook, go follow us on Instagram, go follow us on Twitter, and I'm at Mr._Rutherford as well. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the RTI Show. Signing off for Abby, I'm Nathaniel. We'll be back again sometime in the future.